Thanks so much, Tony, for having you on and joining this week's Five Things. Gary, going to move forward. This is the Bitcoin to $100,000 issue. That's our next point. Bitcoin crosses 100,000. We're talking Peter Schiff. You might have guessed. He finds a new excuse for why he was not wrong. Gary, thing number two this week, the written version will be thing number one, but thing number two on the video version, Bitcoin breaks 100,000. And I think we got 4 or 5 exclamation marks there
Yeah.
to really put an emphasis on it.
Yeah. So first of all, congratulations to the Bitcoin community. Um, look, Rob, just take a look at everything that's happened in the last few years. They got banned in China. There have been adverse regulatory decisions. The decision to allow Bitcoin ETFs and let people buy through regular brokerage firms, that took years with the SEC fighting it. Um, there have been all kinds of regulatory threats. There have been all kinds of things that Bitcoin holders have had to endure, and it is a incredibly dedicated and resilient community. Deep Knowledge Investing, we have owned Bitcoin since it was at 15,000 approximately 4 years ago. So up 6.5x, 7x, depending on the day, is phenomenal. Bitcoin is crashed all the way down to 97,000 as of this. The funny thing is, the day after it crossed 100,000, one of the it went back down to 91,000 right away. One of the interns texted me and said, "What's going on?" I said, "Nothing. Stay calm, stack sats." Right. And by the way, that is what the Bitcoin community has done. So let's go to our favorite Bitcoin hater, Peter Schiff. Schiff has been negative on Bitcoin at least since it was 1,000, making him wrong by 10,000%. Right? $1,000 invested in Bitcoin when Peter Schiff first started hating on it would net you $100,000. Had you put in 10,000 at that time, it'd be worth a cool $1,000,000. So, Peter is just consistently funny on this, and he doubled down on his horrible decision here, tweeting that it's ironic that Bitcoin only hit 100,000 by buying off politicians and getting in bed with the government, and that it was government intervention that caused this milestone to be hit. And his quotation here, what couldn't be done in a free market was achieved through the coercive power of the state. Now, my view on all of this is you have to be kidding me. Bitcoin is an unregulated worldwide asset. It is traded everywhere in the world since its inception. So the idea that Bitcoin, which is decentralized, there is no president of Bitcoin. If something goes wrong with Bitcoin, you can't call 1-800-Bitcoin and ask to talk to the manager, right? It is decentralized. The idea that Bitcoin got in bed with the US government is hilarious. There's no Bitcoin committee to get in bed with the US government. There is no Bitcoin representative. There's no board of Bitcoin directors to get into bed with the government. Peter's comment is ridiculous. Now, what just took me 2 minutes to explain, Lynn Alden blew apart with her usual hilarious, smart incisiveness. In one comment, she just pointed out that governments hold a far larger percentage of the world's refined gold than they do Bitcoin. And that, she's 100% right. Gold is largely held by central banks. Gold, which is Peter Schiff's big marketing push, it's his big position, it's the thing he talks about constantly. That's in bed with central banks all over the world. Not Bitcoin. Credit to Lynn Alden for just nailing that in like a 10-word tweet. I've often found that like I'll write 20 pages, 20-page white papers, and Lynn just puts out a 180 or 220-word tweet and just summarizes the whole thing. She's great at that. In the meantime, Bitcoin now has a $2 trillion market cap. It is the 12th largest currency globally. It outranks the Taiwanese dollar, closing in on the Australian dollar. And I believe, Alex, help me out on this, larger or smaller than silver right now?
It's larger than silver right now, I believe.
All
Yeah.
right. How long till it catches gold?
Well, interesting. I was going over, when I first got into Bitcoin, I read all the famous Bitcoin books, one of them being the Bitcoin Standard. And one of the most attractive things about Bitcoin is its hard money attributes, a bit like gold. And recently at the halving that I believe we had in March or April time, Bitcoin's stock to flow ratio actually has now overtaken gold's. So gold's, I believe, is around 58, Bitcoin's being around 63. And so following, looking at previous bull markets, we've seen that I don't think that this bull market's done. I still think we've got a few months left in it. So it'll be interesting to see how far it, or how close, or how much it surpasses gold in the coming year. So we'll see how wrong Peter Schiff is in the years
I
come.
think we already know how wrong Peter Schiff is. It's just a matter of whether he'll be man enough to admit it. But it's to give people a little clarity on the hardness numbers that Alex is talking about. Basically, what he's doing is saying that the supply of gold expands by about 1.5 or 2% a year. And after the most recent halving, Bitcoin, the supply is expanding even more slowly than that, and that will decrease over time. But in the meantime, the person who gave Bitcoin the biggest lift last week, it was not President Trump. It was not the Bitcoin board of directors that Peter Schiff seems to think it exists. It wasn't Lynn Alden, who we respect and admire. It was accidentally Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell pointed out that Bitcoin is not a competitor for the dollar. We agree. The dollar is just printed into oblivion by adding trillions and trillions of dollars a year. But his quotation here about Bitcoin, it's just like gold, only it's virtual. It's not a competitor for the dollar. It's really a competitor for gold. And that is a phenomenal quotation by Chairman Powell. That alone sent Bitcoin up huge on the day that he said it. Imagine the chairman of the Federal Reserve saying that Bitcoin was a competitor for gold, especially given that it was within my lifetime that the dollar was delinked from gold, making the dollar worth a whole lot less. Alex, what do you see in the future? How long till we hit 200,000 or a million, or what happens, or does it just crash down to 50?
Well, no, I do think it is remarkable hearing a Fed chairman say that Bitcoin is a competitor to gold. I mean, we've seen people from the Federal Reserve like Neil Kashkari, who we wrote a piece about, I believe it was a couple months ago, maybe it was just around a month ago, and he was saying that there's still no real use case. So it's certainly funny that a lot of people, no matter their kind of position or their view on their world, the view on the world or their role in the world, they still are kind of coming around to it and don't fully understand it. But yeah, I think, as I said, this coming year, I think, as you say, I'm a Bitcoiner, so I think this next year is going to be very bullish for Bitcoin, and I think it's an opportunity for more people to learn about it. Maybe, hopefully, Peter Schiff finally. I'm doubtful, but yeah, I think especially now that it's, we've seen obviously the US talk about a potential strategic Bitcoin reserve. We've seen, I think it's at two other countries now. I saw there was talks about Switzerland. We saw something about Russia recently. So yeah, Bitcoin's definitely going a bit more viral, I think.
Yeah, and so Rob, before we hand it back to you, Alex, on your point regarding Kashkari saying there's no use case,
Mm,
I'm not going to take the 20 minutes it would take to explain it now, but I will let people know that we are about to re-release or come out with a second edition of Deep Knowledge Investing's white paper, arguing against Nassim Taleb's assertion that Bitcoin is a zero. Part of Taleb's argument was to say it's not a currency. You can't use it to buy things. And I will tell you that 3 years ago in Deep Knowledge Investing's white paper on the topic, I argued you absolutely can use Bitcoin to buy things. That facility, that capacity has increased. And when we release the new revised edition of this white paper, which will be coming out soon, and Rob will be releasing it for us, I'm so proud to say, we will be including an entire section on the Lightning Network, on Nostr, explaining how robust the Bitcoin payment system is. And I'm really proud to announce that the person who wrote that section is here with us. Good job, Alex. We're looking
thank you.
forward to adding your work to the Deep Knowledge Investing white paper on this. It's phenomenal, and looking forward to directly including your work with what we're putting out there and explaining to people that there are use cases for Bitcoin, and people are entitled to not like it, but the Bitcoin community has, I think, at this point, some really great arguments to be made, and we'll be getting that out to you for the people listening to this. We're going to be making it available to everybody in the next few weeks.
Gary, one other question I wanted to touch on real quick before we transition to thing number 3. President-elect Trump, he appointed Paul Atkins, pro-crypto, blockchain lobbyist. He's going to be replacing Gary Gensler at the SEC. What do you make of that with Gensler out at the SEC?
So look, it's a great move. Gary Gensler, first of all, it's tough to talk about. On one hand, look, Rob, we have been very critical of government overreach and government power on the show on a regular basis. I'll also tell you that in general, the SEC is one of those few government agencies that I actually respect. I have, despite the fact that they get criticized a lot, I have seen them do excellent work. I have seen them investigate people who in the market stole from others, prosecute them, make great cases, and force them to make restitution and make investors who have been cheated whole. I have seen them do it. And they do some really good work at the SEC. It is, like I said, it's one of the few government agencies I actually respect. Gary Gensler has been wearing the black hat in the Bitcoin community and the crypto community for the last few years because he made it very hard to get approval for the Bitcoin ETFs. He's been anti-crypto. And even when earlier this year, we got the approval for the dozen or so ETFs that are out there right now, Chairman Gensler made a point of saying, we don't endorse this. Like, he added commentary saying this is a bad idea, but we did it because we had to. They'd lost some court cases. I don't think Gary Gensler is an idiot. I don't think he's a villain, and I do respect the SEC. That said, President Trump has every right to put the people he wants in position. President Trump was supported in his reelection efforts strongly by the Bitcoin and crypto community. He sought out their votes. He sought out their support. And I think it's only natural and understandable for him to want to replace Chairman Gensler with somebody who shares the view of both President Trump and his supporters. This choice it's a really good choice for that purpose. And, I like to see it. And I like the fact that President Trump is coming out and saying, this is really important. And he's made it clear that he wants the US to be a leader in new technologies, including things like Bitcoin and artificial intelligence. And I like the idea that, he wants to ensure that the US doesn't fall behind on these important technologies and these important developments. In general, I'm in favor of the government getting out of the way, but putting in regulators who will take a lighter hand to these things fits right into our thesis for how these markets should work. I think it was a good choice by President-elect Trump. I don't think Gary Gensler is the villain everyone makes him out to be, but this development is very positive for the Bitcoin community. We support it. I'm glad to see it. And, I don't think anyone in the deep knowledge investing community has sold a single sat. So we're holding firm here.
That's exactly right. As always, you're listening to the 5 Things with Deep Knowledge Investing. Head to the website, deepknowledgeinvesting.com. You can grab a free subscription, be added to our subscriber and newsletter list. We'll deliver the 5 things to you on a weekly basis. And we'd also love if you considered a premium subscription on the website. That'll give you access to all premium paywalled content, as well as current recommendations and buy and sell instances that come from Gary as the portfolio adjusts.